Hello. Hi, how's everybody?
All right, welcome everybody. It is 12 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and begin. I am Catherine Brewer, co-chair of Ruse for Mental Health and faculty in the Counseling and Counseling Psychology Department. This is our last lunch and learn for the semester, a very timely topic coming up for our last weeks of class and finals. But remember, you do have all of our lunch and learns recorded and available on the website. So if you're needing any support through the rest of the semester and over the summer semester, you can definitely watch those recordings. And then we will be back in the fall. Even though our plan is to be back on campus in person, we have decided that we would like to continue our virtual lunch and learns since they have been so well received. So stay tuned for more of those. A couple logistical things, because we are recording the program, would ask that you keep your videos turned off, and that's for your privacy. And then do stay on mute just to help us eliminate background noise. But our presenter will let you know how best to ask questions and express thoughts, whether she wants you to do that coming off mute or putting that into the chat. And now I would like to go ahead and introduce our presenter for today's program. Super excited to see Corey. We have worked together off and on over the years. And so Corey Hinsbone, MA LCPC, has been counseling in the state of Kansas for over 20 years. Her undergraduate work was done at Pittsburgh State University, and she received her master's in counseling from Dallas Theological Seminary. After working at a private practice setting for 6 years, she founded Renew Counseling Center in Olathe, Kansas. Renew's therapists and dietitians have helped thousands of individuals over the past 15 years by providing outpatient counseling for issues such as anxiety, depression, eating disorders, grief, marriage, nutrition, personal issues, and trauma. Seeing a need in Kansas City for specific treatment for anxiety, which is the #1 mental health illness in America, in 2014, Corey began studying and traveling throughout the country the use of acceptance and commitment therapy, also known as ACT. She launched the Anxiety Center at Renew in 2017 using this treatment modality and is considered an acceptance and commitment therapy expert in the state of Kansas. The Anxiety Center provides an intensive outpatient program for adults and adolescents struggling with anxiety. Corey believes sharing your story, learning effective coping skills, and valuing your own authenticity, one can change and have a meaningful life even when there is suffering. Corey provides supervision to graduate students, many of those from UMKC, by the way, and also licensed professional counselors. She has given dozens of talks on eating disorders, anxiety, and acceptance and commitment therapy. Outside of Renew, she enjoys spending time with her husband, children, traveling, journaling, photography, and art. So I want to say thank you so much, Corey, for volunteering your time to be here with us today and to present such an important topic to our campus.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here, and thanks for spending your time here, especially if you're feeling close to burnout. This is not something you really want to feel like you have time to do. So I'm going to share my screen here. And my goal is to be done by 12:45, because I know you guys all have a lot of different things to do. So I am keeping in mind with the clock. Hopefully y'all can see my screen. The best way to communicate with me is through chat. I have my chat open, and I'll try to, there's a couple exercises we'll do where you'll get to respond in chat. So if you cannot see my screen, write that in chat right now. Otherwise, I'll assume you can. All right, so I see here. Here's our goal for our 45 minutes together is I want you to leave here feeling like you know simple tools that will decrease or prevent burnout by helping you be mindfully present and enjoy your life even when hard things are happening. So I know my guess is right now the hard thing that is happening is you guys have finals. A lot of you have finals as students or as professors. You have all the end of the year wrap up to do. And I would think those things would be extremely stressful that you are doing. This is what Renew looks like. We are in Olathe, Kansas, and I love it that we're in a building that used to be a home. I've met the granddaughter that used to come here when her grandma lived there. I don't know how many years ago. We've been here since 2005 in Olathe, Kansas. And then I specifically specialize in an adult program at 6 weeks long for people that once a week anxiety counseling, working with a therapist for anxiety is not enough. We're a network with most insurance companies, and it's wonderful to see people transform from struggling so much with anxiety, feeling like it controls their life, to 6 weeks later, feeling like they have all these tools and that they've gotten their life back. And we are a network with most insurance companies. All right, so let's go into what is the definition of burnout? Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, unable to meet the constant demands. As the stress continues, you begin to lose the interest and motivation that led you to take on a certain role in the first place. So right now, I'd like you to write in the chat what things in your life have caused you to feel burnout, and it can be past or present. What things in your life have caused you to feel burnout? COVID, college soccer, working from home. Yeah, that's valid. Feeling unsure of the future. I do not like seeing others stress. Okay, yeah. I know for me, I struggled with burnout. We adopted 2 children out of foster care 2 years ago. And I used to feel recharged on the weekends. I thought that's what weekends were for, to try to recharge from the week. And my husband and I found that we started dreading the weekends because it was so much work, because there was so much trauma. So there was so much acting out all weekend long that we could not wait to be back at work on Monday for the weekend to be over. So that's an example for burnout for me. COVID, the activity calendars of my 4 children. Yes, I can relate to that. I have 4 children at home. Work, school, life juggling. Yeah, that's a lot. And I know some of you are working and then going to school, and you have families, and it's just constant when you're juggling so many different hats. Thank you for sharing some of those. Okay, so I'm glad that you recognize burnout. I want you to have a piece of paper next to you, or a journal, just something where you can write these notes. I want you to have these numbers for yourself. So what I want you to do on this screen with these questions, I want you to rate on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is extremely low and 10 is the best it can be, the following. So currently, present tense, what is the emotional health of your relationships? So your friendships, your loved ones, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate it on a sticky or piece of paper, something next to you. What is the emotional health of your relationships? 10, they can't be any better. 1, they can't be any worse. Your eating habits. How do you feel about your eating habits? 10, they're fantastic, no change needed. 1, they're really, really poor. Three, exercise. How would you rank that on a scale of 1 to 10 right now in your life? Right now being this past week, past month, whatever it fits for you, just in general. Your technology hygiene. So that is how much you're on social media. I got a typo there. Sorry about that. You see that I'm definitely going to challenge some of your perfectionism with that. Spacing out or checking out on Netflix or other things. So technology, any screens, scale of 1 to 10. 10, I've got great hygiene. It's a great balance. It's not getting in the way of my life. Or 1, oh my gosh, I'm controlled by it. I'm doing it all the time. And sleep hygiene. How would you rate that right now? Okay. I hope this was helpful for you to look at these 5 things. These are 5 things you can work on to help decrease your stress level, and the lower your stress, the more you're able to not go into burnout mode. So these are huge, huge things. So in regards to relationships, I want to touch on that one. The rest of them, I know you're like, okay, yes, I know these things. I bet you're thinking that. But in regards to relationships, what's been found is that social contact is nature's antidote to stress. And talking face to face with a good listener is one of the fastest ways to calm your nervous system and relieve stress. I'm going to read that one more time. Social contact is nature's antidote to stress. And talking face to face with a good listener is one of the fastest ways to calm your nervous system and relieve stress. So I'll give a personal example of that. We are working on some construction in our house, in our basement. We're getting our basement done. It's unfinished. And one of the workers came yesterday to work on the HVAC. Super nice person. I've met him different times. He's great. I had done all the correct communication with him leading up to the day he was supposed to come, but he did not follow through with the things he said he would do before that day. So when he came, he was saying he couldn't do the job that he was going to do because they had already put the wood frame up, and he told me some other things why he couldn't do what he was doing. And I was very, very frustrated because he told me, I will do my part once the wood frame is up. And now he's telling me he can't do that part. So I called my husband. He wasn't available face to face, and just said, can I vent for a minute? And I vented probably for 3 minutes. And I felt so much better just by having that connection and be able to relieve that stress. FYI, the average emotion lasts 90 seconds. That's the average emotion if you're able to accept and express it. If you stuff it or stays inside, of course, they can last longer, but that is the average length of an emotion. I just learned that from a 14-hour ACT workshop I went to. I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so already only 13 minutes in, you guys hopefully know some things you can work on for your burnout is any of these things. The goal with all of these, and if we had more time than 45 minutes, what I would have you do is go through each one of these and write what is one thing you could do. For example, in number 1, the emotional health of your relationship. Let's say you rated it a 5. My next question would be for you, what's one thing you could do to get it from going from a 5 to a 6 in the next week? What's one action? So maybe that's, I need to call Susan and ask her, hey, can we go for a walk? Maybe that would move that your relational rating from a 5 to a 6. So that's a great thing for you to consider doing after this is, what is one action step you could do on each of these to move it one notch up? Any tips to assist someone who may be stressed and having a challenging day? The best tip is active listening. There's a great YouTube video from Brene Brown. Some of you might have been able to see it before. You just type in empathy versus sympathy and it pops up. It's 3 minutes long, and it really shows how to actively listen when someone is stressed, having a hard time, and being a calming presence. So I'm sure there's a lot more to that, but that's a quick response to that question. Okay, next I'd like to go into and teach you guys some different specific tools on mindfulness, and we're going to practice some of these. So the definition of mindfulness, you're going to hear so many different definitions. There's not one DSM-5, definition of mindfulness, but I like this one from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's really known as the mindfulness guru in the US. There's a 60-minute video of him practicing mindfulness. I think you could spend $10,000 and spend a weekend with him on a retreat and do mindfulness. So here's the excellent definition: paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And there's so much research that shows if you practice mindfulness throughout your day, your anxiety is going to decrease, your stress is going to decrease, your burnout is going to decrease by practicing mindfulness. It is huge. There's so much research to show the benefits of mindfulness, and I'm going to share a little bit of that research with you. Now, I think there's confusion between what mindfulness is and what meditation is. So I thought I'd share with you the definition of meditation. Meditation is a formal, seated, mindful practice. So meditation is one of many different kinds of mindfulness. And here's some examples of meditation: breath awareness meditation, body scan, mantra-based, visualization, guided meditation. So we are actually going to practice something in here, which is a form of mindfulness, but it's under the subheading of meditation because it's going to be a formal seated thing where we're doing it together, right? So you could be mindful, paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment, right now, wherever you're at. You could be mindful that my voice, you could be mindful and really paying attention to the words on the screen. You could be mindful and paying attention to what's surrounding your screen right now. That is actually being mindful. So paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So I'd like to know from you all and go ahead and write this in the chat and I'll try to catch up reading. What gets in the way for you of being mindful? I'll go back to that definition. You write in the chat, what barriers, what gets in the way of you being mindful? Anyone want to share? I can share some with mine and you can still write in the chats, but gets in the way of me being mindful is I get home and all my kids want my attention. I have a 10, 5, 5.5, and 3-year-old. And the 3 littles always want my attention. I'm trying to make a meal and then after a meal, you got to clean up and do dishes. And the 10-year-old's always going off doing her own thing. But I know if I don't spend time with her, she is going to disengage. And then our relationship suffers and she then acts out. And so for me, I have a hard time being mindful because I feel like there's so much stimuli in our house nonstop. At work, being a business owner, what gets in the way of me being mindful is trying to get through all of my emails, feeling like there's not enough time and I have to pick up my kids by 3:30, needing to respond to lots of different things. So I'm seeing some feedback here. Constant running list in your mind. That's excellent. Yep. Daily tasks, caring for others, all the duties of a mom, sister, daughter, wife, educator, provider, and the guilt associated with not giving everyone 100%. Amen to that. Thank you. So I can definitely identify with what you guys have written, thinking about what I have left to do that day or days going forward. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So I think many of you identify with the struggle of being mindful. So let's go into why we should. Here we go. Research has found that just 3 hours of mindfulness practice improves your brain function. Okay, the good news with this, it's 3 hours over a period of time. So if you practiced 5 minutes of mindfulness 5 days a week over the course of 2 months, you're going to have drastic changes in your brain. And those 5 minutes could be spread out. It doesn't have to be all at once, but practicing once you get to 3 hours over a period of time, I would say around 2 months is a good goal. There's going to be changes in your brain. Let me show you some of these changes. 1, the white matter and gray matter in your brain increase, which improves the functioning of the prefrontal cortex. So prefrontal cortex is all your choices, I will do this, I won't do this, the self-control. Teenagers, this is what gets developed last is the prefrontal cortex. That's why they're so impulsive. So this improves because of the white and gray matter in your brain by practicing mindfulness. So the gray matter in your brain is density. It's like the muscle. So your brain gets stronger, more muscle if that improves. And the white matter of your brain is the communication. All of your neurons are communicating constantly, and your communication is more integral if that is thicker. Isn't that fascinating that your gray and white matter can improve by practicing mindfulness? And then here's just a couple others. I have a whole talk on the changes of the brain, but I'm just going real briefly right now so that we can practice some exercises together. It improves your immune system functioning. It increases concentration and attention span. There is a Netflix series called, I believe it's called The Mind Explained or Something Explained. And I have watched there's one on mindfulness and there's one on memory. And everyone, the smartest people in the world practice mindfulness every day. So their concentration and attention has increased with that. Isn't that interesting? I find that so fascinating. Improves memory function and improves quality of sleep. How wonderful would that be? Here's some more changes that are some of my favorite changes of the brain. It improves regulation of emotions, behaviors, and thoughts. So you have more self-control. Basically, you're less in your amygdala, which is the fight, flight, and freeze. You're more in the other parts of the brain if you're practicing mindfulness on a regular basis. Improves perspective in stress situations and allows for greater control over the fight, flight, and freeze, which I just said. Allows for more presence in relationships and leads to deeper connections with ourselves and others. So hopefully I get some buy-in that you guys are willing to try some mindfulness, seeing all these awesome changes that can happen inside your brain. So with that, let's go into how to enjoy the present moment through mindfulness. Here are a couple activities that you can try being mindful that you guys do on a regular basis. I want this to be as simple as possible for you, so hopefully you can work on it. So driving. How can you be mindful driving? And you guys could type this in if you want to, but be mindful driving is having your phone on silent or turned off, and really paying attention to your five senses. That's the easiest thing to practice mindfulness, is being aware of your five senses. So while driving, to feel, for example, your steering wheel, and what does your steering wheel feel like in your hands? To feel the weight of the gas pedal or the brake underneath your foot. You could be doing that. To feel what your back feels like sitting in the chair. To observe, where's your mind going as you're driving? That's being mindful. If you pause and notice, where is my mind going right now? That is practicing being mindful. And another great thing with mindfulness, a lot of us just drive and not pay attention to even where we're going, but to mindfully try to notice things you have not noticed before as you go to point A to point B. That's one of my favorite ways to be mindful, is to try to see things I usually don't see on that drive going home. Another thing I love doing, being in Kansas and we have these big, fat, awesome Kansas clouds, is I think about when it, obviously not when it's all gray, but I love looking at the sky and saying, the sky is never going to look like this ever again. And look at this masterpiece. Look at how beautiful this is. That's another thing you could do while driving. So try, this is something you could try for during your drive for 10 minutes to drive more mindfully, paying attention to your five senses, what's going around you. Okay. Brushing teeth. How we do this one, we don't do this in group with COVID, but we talk about this. You could be mindful by brushing your teeth. So can you notice as you brush your teeth, one, every time you go to the dentist, they're trying to tell you how to brush your teeth more mindfully, where you're doing the circle, making sure you get all of it. You brush for 2 minutes. So doing that and feeling the toothbrush against your gums and your teeth, noticing noticing the taste of the toothpaste, trying to do it more calmly instead of rapidly, aggressively, you can actually practice mindfulness. So think about it. If you actually did 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night, brushing teeth, that's 4 minutes of mindfulness a day that you're probably doing on a regular basis anyway. So that's that one. Here's another huge one is, did you know that we taste the food the most the first 3 bites? First 3 bites of any food. Then after that, our taste buds are used to that taste and we do not taste near as much the flavoring of that food. So I encourage, and again, we used to do this before COVID, but obviously we cannot anymore. If you're not allergic to nuts, grab a couple almonds. Eat 1 almond like you usually do, and then pause afterwards and notice what that was like. What was that experience like? What does your mouth feel like now? What was the texture like? Anything that comes to mind about that almond. And then when you eat that second almond, I want you to do that one mindfully. So this time, notice the texture of the almond. Notice what it looks like. Think about, could you identify this almond if it was in a pile of 10 other almonds. And when you eat it, I want you to imagine eating it like it's the last almond you're ever going to eat. So I want you to savor it. So I want you to eat it slowly. Notice the texture, notice the flavor, and take your time in eating that. Almonds are awesome because there's actual difference in eating an almond slowly. And that is your salivary glands will kick in and it will be a creamier versus when you eat it quickly, they don't have time to kick in and you'll be parched, you'll be dry, your mouth will be dry after eating a salty almond the first time. So I encourage you to try just one meal a day to eat 3 mindful bites. So that is, again, no electronics, no talking, but to take a bite, take your time, savor that bite, eat it as slowly as you like, as if you're never going to taste that food again, to really enjoy those flavors. It's a great, easy way to be mindful. And the last one, because of COVID, we're doing this all the time, is washing your hands. So you could practice mindfulness by washing your hands, by doing it more slowly, noticing the soap on it. It's pretty fun to watch little children wash their hands because you can see they're really concentrating, trying to get the different parts, and they might be noticing the different things. So kids are really good at being mindful. Young children, that is. And then nature. There is research that talks about the benefit of nature in reducing burnout, reducing stress. So being in nature, practicing your 5 senses while outside in nature is another great thing you can do to practice mindfulness. Okay, so we are going to practice one together. These are different mindfulness techniques that are meditation. So one is leaves on a stream. Imagine leaves floating on a stream. Place your thoughts, feelings, and urges on the leaves. Let them float on by. This one's a great one. We use it a lot when someone's super heightened with stress, calming. So some of you said, how do I help a friend that's stressed? If they are stressed and they're out of control and their breathing's impacted or they have a hard time focusing, this is a great one to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just describe to yourself 5 things you can see. Then describe to yourself 4 things you can hear. Now describe to yourself 3 things you feel. And then 2 things you smell, and finally 1 thing you taste. Now with this one, if someone is sitting in a room with the 5 things you see, I recommend they focus on 1 object. So in here, for example, I would just focus on one of those paintings right there. And I try to notice 5 things about that painting versus going here, 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 like looking all over the place for 5 things. That's not grounding. So if you could choose 1 object to focus on, the 5 things, especially if you're inside of a building, outside in nature, it's not as overstimulating that you could try to focus more on 5 different things if you would like. But I do find them more detailed, especially if someone's about to have a panic attack, even outside the more detailed on a tree, 1 tree, the better. Clouds in the sky. Imagine, I love this one, again, being in Kansas with our wonderful clouds. Imagine lying, or Missouri. Imagine lying on the ground looking up at the blue sky. As you lay there, imagine clouds gently floating by. Now notice as any thoughts or feelings arise. As you notice each thought and feeling, imagine putting it on a cloud and let it float away. Continue doing this as new thoughts and feelings arise. If you notice the same thought or feeling coming up again, that's okay, it's normal. Acknowledge it and let it flow away. And the last one is looking at your hands. To take a moment and I want you, as I read this, I want you to choose which one of these you want to try. I'm going to try it for 2 minutes together. Okay, one of these 4. Take a moment to pay close attention to one or both of your hands. Notice what they look like, feel like. Are there any memories you get from taking a moment to truly look at your hands? Think of all the things your hands do for you on a daily basis. Take this time to appreciate and be present with your hands. If your thoughts drift, it's okay. Gently bring your focus back to your hands. All right, so I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes. I hope you guys can unplug for 2 minutes. And I want you to try one of these, and then I will bring us back together and you can share what this was like for you if you'd like. Okay, ready? Go ahead. Okay, would anyone like to write anything in the comments of what that was like in the chat? Now, mindfulness takes time to do. So if that didn't feel that great yet, that's normal too. It's like working a new muscle, so to speak. We're not used to intentionally putting our focus on something, but the more you practice it, the stronger that muscle gets. And that was only 2 minutes. Usually I try to, this is recommended, this minute of mindfulness is recommended to do. I hope you choose one of these and you just try to do it once a day or a couple times a week, whatever works for you. There's no judgment. You just want to improve from where you're at and go up. So whatever works for you. Relaxing, comforting, I love it. The reason I chose some of these mindfulness things for you is because leaves on the stream and clouds of the sky acknowledge that you have thoughts. It is normal doing any meditation, and these are again a form of mindfulness, but it's the subcategory of meditation. Any meditation, your mind's going to wander. That's fully normal. But the more you practice it, the more you're going to be able to calm your mind and the less it will wander. But I wanted to do ones where your mind wanders because that's what you start with. And as you improve, that will happen less and less. So with that, the next thing I want to encourage you to do is to download an app. There's lots and lots of apps. I love Headspace because it incorporates its acceptance and commitment therapy. And Calm is really good too. Calm at one time, if your email ended in edu, was free. I don't know if that's still the case. That was about 1.5 years ago. The last time I know someone from our group downloaded it for free because they were a student. So you have to go onto the website to see, just so you know. And then there are some, I will send also all these slides so that Dr. Brewer will have it and she'll be able to share these things with you. But downloading an app and then choosing the same time every day to practice it is huge. There's also great apps to help you fall asleep doing mindfulness. So that if you struggle sleeping, that's another thing that's something to consider. Okay, how do I practice mindfulness? 1, plan what you're doing. If you don't have a plan, it's not going to happen. 2, make a daily routine to make it a habit. And then last, to have accountability. If you don't have accountability, it's really hard to make a new change. There's so much research that shows that. I think one of the reasons our 6-week ACT program is successful is people create homework assignments every night based on what they learned that day. And then they get to share when they come in the next day if they did it, if they didn't, what got in the way, what challenges, how do they use the tools, what tools do they need to add to. That accountability and support is huge. All right, why is it important to be mindful? The answer is the only thing we have an impact on. That's it. We don't control our past. It's done. And if you struggle with depression, a lot of times we feel this heaviness and more stuck kind of back behind us. We can't control our future, and our anxiety is future based. The only thing we can control is right now. And that really can help with burnout, is if you could be mindful and control your present. And your mind's always going, so it could give your mind a little break. All right, shift focus here for the last 10 minutes. I want to focus on what you're living for, what your values are. I think you're going to like this. So from this column here, I want you to choose your favorite word, the one that you like the most, the one that resonates with you, and write it down. The one that makes you feel most alive. Whether you're doing it in your life right now or not does not matter. But which of these in this column, what's your favorite one? Write that down. And these are values. So you're looking at values. Which of these values is your favorite value? Really, for me, creativity. I love being creative. When Dr. Brewer read that I like doing art and photography, I'm like, oh yeah, I do love those things. I don't really have margin right now, but those things make me feel so alive. Okay, hope you got one. Same thing in this column. In just this orange column, what's your favorite value? Write down that one. And if you're torn, there's 2 of them that are just so high, that's fine. You can write down those 2. Do you guys have one? Okay. Same thing, this column. In green column, choose your favorite value. Sensuality is supposed to be sensuality and sexuality. Which one do you value most? Excites you, whether you're doing it or not, in the green column. Write that down. And then this last column. This column, so courage, it's compassion and self-compassion. So when you think of compassion, it's for self and others. Fairness and justice go together. It's forgiveness and self-forgiveness. Honesty, persistence, and then safety and protection go together. So write into the chat done if you have at least one from each column. Okay, thank you. At least one of you's done. Okay, some of you are done. Okay, so you guys have just named and identified at least 4 values. You could do more than this, but I wanted to, for time, I wanted you to at least have 4. So now I'd like you to rank those 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is it's super, super important to you, and 1, it's not going to be a 1 because these are your values. It's not very important. Rank them real quick. So for example, creativity on a scale of 1 to 10, that one is an 8 of importance to me. And you could have the same numbers. I could, my next one, spirituality is important to me. That could be an 8 also. So you could have several of the same, but just rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, how important that is to you. And when you're done with that, if you could write done again. Okay, now we're going to rate it one more time. This last rating, you're going to rate your actions today. So again, I'll go back to creativity. Creativity, if that's my first value, I ranked it as importance was, and I could put an I for importance if you're labeling these, is an 8. But my actions right now on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 3. So you're going to rate how your actions are reflecting that. My actions right now, I am not acting in that value of creativity. It's really low. My actions aren't there, so it's a 3. So rate each of those on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, you could have several of the same number of how are your actions reflecting those values. Okay, so this is a great starting point for you to continue to live the way you're meant to live. You're meant to live being able to be present. You're meant to live in your values in the midst of their suffering. Many, many people that come through our doors have no idea what their values are. They are so in survival mode, living, surviving, not thriving. And a huge way to learn to thrive is to get back in touch of what really matters, what your values are. And so this is just a small little snapshot of that. So my encouragement, the next thing I want you to do is just choose one of these. Choose one of these that had a big difference. So, well, of your 4 words, where the number of importance and the number of your action are different, significantly different. And I want you to write what's one thing you actually write this in the chat. What is one thing you could do this week to move it up a notch? So creativity, my creativity is an 8. My actions are a 3. What's one thing I could do to move it from a 3 to a 4? And I would write that in the chat. I could work on my next project. I want to do this epoxy on our fireplace that I have everything at home. I'm ready to do it, but I need to do it. That would move my creativity from a 3 to a 4, because that's really fun for me to be creative and play with paint. So what's one thing? Go ahead and write down one of your values in chat. What's one thing you could do to move it up one notch? The goal of this, again, is to live life with intentionality, the way that you want to. All right, I'm going to keep going, but I'm hoping you're doing this, hoping you're just so into working on what you could do to move each one up a notch that you didn't have time to write it in the chat. Okay, so in summary of this webinar, this is what I hope you take away and that you try to work on. 1, to work on increasing your ranking with your relationships, eating, exercise, and sleep. Remember, you ranked all those and you talked about what's one thing you could do to possibly raise them if you want to. What would that look like? We talked especially about the importance of relationships, and that really can help you calm you down and help you feel connected more than anything else. So working on those will help decrease burnout. 2, increase mindfulness throughout your day. So you can practice mindfulness by an app. We talked about driving, brushing your teeth, nature, the sky, looking at the sky was one of my examples. So some things you do, and eating was one. I forgot to have you choose one of those you wanted to work on each day, but one of those 5 examples would be great. And you could also try that minute of mindfulness. That was another thing we talked about. And then last thing, focus on a value each week. Just choose one value you want to work on that week and consciously do things towards that value. And some of you guys did share, thank you. Compassion, grace, take a pause before reactivating, whether it be towards myself or others. Oh, good question. How do you discover how to improve your values? I have curiosity as a value to improve. What steps would you suggest my actions towards curiosity? So curiosity could be deciding what's something I want to be curious about this week. So my kids right now, one of them's really curious about sharks. So we will look up YouTube videos or read something about sharks. You could practice curiosity in a conversation with somebody where they're talking, and you practice curiosity where you're more curious what they're saying. You ask more probing questions. You sit there in their presence a little bit more to try to dive in. I try to practice curiosity a lot with my neighbors. We moved a year ago. I still need to know them, but to engage with them and practice curiosity of what their world is like, to try to build that connection. Those might be some examples. Okay. Let's see, engagements. It's easy to become disengaged with humans outside of your home during COVID. I can remember this by simply reaching out, an unexpected card, a quick Zoom, quick text, even a Zoom. Excellent. Gratitude each day by writing down in your journal one thing you're grateful for. That's great. And Darian, I have a whole talk on gratitude. There's so much research that talks about the changes. Those who practice gratitude on a regular basis, I think it's 5 minutes a day, have 10% increased happiness and also have better relationships. So there's a huge connection with gratitude. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Dr. Brewer, for having me. I hope that you guys feel like you could have some tools to get you through finals next week, to prevent burnout, and to more live the life you're meant to live. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. Once again, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Really great information, really helpful exercises that I'm sure that people will be using over the next couple of weeks and hopefully beyond. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Wish you well as you wrap up the end of the semester, and we'll see you back in the fall.